So Rhonda's use of gesso over patterned paper got me thinking. You can remember her layout right here where she gessoed right over these and drew it. And I thought, what if you gessoed right over some chipboard? And that's what I did here, is I unified all these different chipboard alphabets with just a little bit of gesso. You can see here we have lots of different fonts, textures, sizes. This is foam, this is glitter, this is regular chipboard. So what I've done is I've taken all those different kinds of chipboard and I've adhered them to this sheet of cardstock. Now you can see here they're very varied and it's not particularly attractive. However, a quick coat of gesso, which remember, gesso is a primer and it adds a level of gription and it just really lets you hang on to it. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take some gesso and I'm going to put it on. Some important things. You want to be using a dry brush and it's better to work in several thin coats than try to glop too much on. And because I'm working on white cardstock, I don't have to really go that far past the letters, okay? I'm just going to coat it on nice and easy with my dry brush, waiting between coats to thicken it up anywhere that I feel like the color is still showing through. So once this is actually dry, which you can see this top set of it is, then we're going to add a little bit of fun. I'm going to take some watercolor. Now I need to clean out my brush, and the best way to clean out a brush I find is by stomping it up and down into your water, okay? That cleans the bristles out really nicely because I don't want any gesso in my watercolor. I am using tube watercolors, but you could use any watercolors that you happen to have, and I've already put some out into a palette here. And what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to take my very wet brush, I'm going to go into the watercolor, get a little bit onto that nice wet brush, and I'm going to go over the top. And I'm just slapping on the color. Now, a second added benefit of the gesso that I didn't really talk about before is it's helping to seal that cardstock so it's not quite as absorbent. And what that means is you're not going to get the soggy paper that you would otherwise, the same as putting a primer down on anything else. And you could continue to play adding all sorts of stuff. And if you look back at the finished layout, you'll see that I used a whole bunch of color and I created a real focus using yellow right across the center. I also happen to have done my journaling in watercolor. I just used a very thin brush. The final tip is you're going to embellish with some glitter glue. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to go around the edge of the letters to create a little border. And I think it creates a really nice sense of definition. And if you want to, you can use all sorts of colors. I happen to be using silver, and you'll see on the original layout that I actually used red. And not only did I use red to outline, but I also used red to actually draw these first two letters. One other tip that I'd like to give you is you'll notice that it overlaps the photo right here. So if you have a photo that has some empty space that's not that interesting, this is a great way to make everything feel like it's melding together. And the photo isn't sitting on top of the layout, it's actually incorporated into the layout.